So Dave Rubin is our great mate from the United States. I love him because he's a clear thinker. He's also a Gen Xer who believes that we can get back control of the world by being common sense people. Perfect example of this is the Twitter files which have come out of recent weeks that show us how that platform was bastardised by the far left, yet the mainstream media, or dare I say all the other media, I hate that term mainstream, it makes us seem otherwise, don't want to talk about it.
In terms of why they actually ignored what I think is probably the biggest story of the year, well, it's obvious. It's like, hey, they can't shine a light on the truth because their whole job at this point has been to confuse us and lie to us. Actually, Fox News did a survey. They actually watched the three big networks here in America, ABC, NBC, CBS, nightly news, 6:30 p.m., the half-hour nightly news programs. There was zero coverage. Zero coverage, not even a mention of it. This is seriously dangerous because it shows why so many people are dysregulated. So let's say your audience is paying a little bit of attention to the Twitter files. They're getting their news from you. They have some like rough sense of really what's going on here. Now you have a similar Australian who lives next door to the guy that watches your show. He watches corporate press. They live in essence in two different worlds. And I think those two different worlds are going to continue diverging. And I don't know what that spells for the future of Western civilization, because if we can't agree, we already have trouble agreeing on basic facts. We have trouble agreeing on settled science. We have trouble agreeing on almost all of the issues that were settled, say, 20 years ago. But now, if we can't agree on what is true, what is real, we got a much, much bigger problem. And I think we're going to all have to slog through that.
Someone has to handle this. Someone has to deal with this, because while the left love it because it's working in their favour, if one day it flips, they're going to go nuts and they're going to be the ones that get affected by this. It either is a town square or it is a private party.
Yeah, well, look, once you've privatized the town square, which is in essence what we did, because even before Elon got Twitter, even though it was a public company, it was operating at as a private company. The way that the employees of Twitter were, now we know, colluding with government officials to silence people is not what a public company would be doing. A public company is beholden to the shareholders. It's beholden, the board has to make decisions that are congruent with the shareholders making more money. Clearly, Twitter was not doing what was best for the business of Twitter. Twitter was doing perhaps what was best for the business of the Democrat Party or the establishment party, the elite party, whatever you might want to call it. But yeah, you make an important distinction there. The idea of a common carrier. Most people in a sane world would say, hey, I'm just using him as an example. Maybe I don't like Alex Jones. I find his views to be noxious, but no one in their right mind would say Alex Jones shouldn't have a telephone. I mean, that would really be a crazy thing to say, and yet a huge percentage of people say, no, Alex Jones should not be allowed to open a Stripe account or be on Twitter or YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So the more that we've privatized the places that we communicate, the less they are beholden to the laws of the land. It's why I have no doubt, I can speak for you when I say this, Paul, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you will, that as an Australian, you guys are deeply jealous of our First Amendment here in the United States. It is perhaps the most important, well, it's number one in the Bill of Rights for a reason, and it's perhaps the key thing to why states like I live in Florida can operate functionally, that we still have an ability to say what we want without the government coming after you. We know they were doing it in cahoots with big tech, but they can't come directly after you, and we still have to watch out for that. But it's a beautiful protection that we have here that you guys don't quite have in Australia. They certainly don't have in Canada and many other Western democracies, which do have certain limitations around speech.
Well, I often try to say on the show, we don't have free speech in Australia. We have the illusion of it, but there's an awful lot of controls, everything from media regulation, well, again, through to sort of what's considered polite or impolite speech. But as capital has gone woke, as business has gone woke, the left now is fully okay with corporate overreach. They are completely okay with the idea that you set up a communications platform, but then determine who gets to communicate on that platform. Why is that? Because you would have thought that the people who were suspicious of the corporation 15 years ago would be suspicious now, but they are happy to harness the overuse of power by some corporations.
You know, an unfortunate conclusion that I've come to over the last, say, 5 years is that the left generally just believes in power. That doesn't mean the right is right about all things, but generally, if you were to say someone on the right, what do you believe in? Usually, from an American perspective, they would say individual rights, the Constitution, God, something like that. You'd have some sense of what they believe in. On the left, they believe that the world should exist as they wish it to be, meaning they have feelings about a certain set of things, and the world should just move in that direction. So they don't mind corporate power when corporate power is working for them. What's happening with Elon and Twitter is the greatest example of this. So think about it. A month ago, before he got Twitter, a whole bunch of us were complaining about being shadow banned, suspended, silenced, the rest of it. They kept saying, go build your own thing, go build your own thing, get off there, you have no right to say what you want, blah, blah, blah. Now he gets it, and they're extremely upset because, and what's even funnier though, the irony is like, okay, fine, everything's ironic and irony is dead at some level. But what's more interesting about it is the fact that they simply don't see their ridiculous position. You know what I mean? They don't even see that, man, what you're complaining about, he hasn't silenced anyone. He's just opening it up. So what you really fear is the open exchange of ideas. And perhaps that's why they censor us. Do you think?
Dave Rubin is awesome, as is Megyn Kelly, as is, of course, Nigel Farage, as is Andrew Bogut, all of which will be back with us again next year. Our special contributors on top of all of our great guests and great debate.